Hi, welcome back to this series. Again, talking about the missing piece of the social puzzle when it comes to what represents a process. Talk about this issue about how the difference between the social dynamic without human influence of dogs in their natural, without human influence and in terms of how this transfers over to the human um, dynamic and reconciling those core ingredients. Okay, what that means in terms of the difference between the integrity of what that means at the without human influence and how humans connect to bring that to reconcile um, those core ingredients through a process that provides the same type of alignment and integrity. And this is where lining it up. And this is where you get into this thing about when we talk about trainers out there who are looking at again, looking at the kind of the surface, okay, looking at appearances, and even in terms of the whole, dog pack and how they relate that interplay at that level. But again, the problems when you know, take certain aspects of that and try to incorporate that in without the integrity I'm talking about, and how that can set up again, continue to set up these type of moments where trainers are getting blindsided, owners are getting blindsided, that change isn't really happening. The same counterfeit picture issue, even for trainers that don't use treats, they don't jump in that way, they don't set in motion that type of a picture at the front end that way initially, but still the same problems exist, the same type of outcomes when it comes to a counterfeit picture change, and then dealing with situations where you're getting bit, someone's getting bit. Okay, but saying the whole truth through a bribery-based trainer where they're not getting bitten, but then all the same outcomes are happening. The relationship isn't actually getting better. It's all appearance focused. So here, guys like Cesar Millan, um, they are power playing it. I talk about I talk about this type of spectrum where, just like the dog daddy type of, I've done a couple videos on the dog daddies type of power play, but I talk about the gaps and the holes to the lack of integrity that way, where it's providing clarity to the dog. Okay, it's making sense to the dog in a way in which it's coming together through a interaction based method that's speaking the right language. Okay, if you watch my videos on my channel, you'll see how I'm doing that. What that looks like. Okay, it's very specific. And it's going to provide the right information. Those core ingredients, influence code, are going to be reconciled the right way. Okay, and there's not going to be these types of gaps and holes where bad things are happening that way. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's easy. And because, we talk about failure, it's still about the human. Okay, the human is the key here. The human has to, commit. They have to embrace. They have to engage. They have to bring the structure in place. And when that happens, great things can happen. So here, talk about Cesar Millan, Brandon Fouche, trainers who look at the social level. And even though I can agree on certain things, where I can say, okay, that's good, but you have to go further than that. Okay, the core ingredients have to be reconciled. They need to come together, and I show it. We talk about how leashes are used. Okay, being dialed into the dog's level of thinking. I see it here in this video. So here's this video here that I'm going to critique, not all of it. I just want to dial people into some what I'm talking about here, some examples of what the difference is. Okay, when I talk about aspects of control and influence aligning to give you the right information, okay, to affect change. There's a proactive theme here too, in terms of being dialed in that way. So here it's called Cesar Millan's 5 Worst Bites. Okay, so you see Cesar. No, you're wrong. This isn't meant to be a personal attack on Cesar Millan. Caesar, he seems to have a great personality. Okay, very engaging, personable person, the type of person I could sit down, probably have a great conversation with. He's looked at, regarded as, highly regarded in the dog training world. But again, you see a lot of, him being targeted by many, okay, even balanced trainers, believe it or not. So you can see the type of issues here, but again, my thing here is to provide clarity, okay, to establish what is a process. And so I'm going to play some of this video here. So here you see Caesar. He's in the home environment of a dog owner struggling with overcome issues with her dog, her little dog. And I'm going to play some of this. And just to mention a few points. I've mentioned this on some prior videos, but again, when I make the point about the Cesar Millan type of approach, the blindsiding, how that sets up, the gaps and holes here, why the integrity of how you're interacting with a dog, how you're connected to a leash. Okay, those things are important. Okay, it's an extension of you. It allows that connection to happen and influence and control to be reconciled so that you're able to get real-time information as to not just the current state of the relationship, but your dog's state of mind in the moment. And so when you're dialed in that way, you're communicating with the dog, okay, through control and influence. And when you see how I do it, how you might talk about a baseline, okay, it's meant to establish, it's meant to reveal, and it's meant to change. So let's play some of the Caesar's.
Sure about what is this event is all about, but I don't feel aggressive. And when that glare is there, rage surfaced. So we have to be very careful about that. And she's not being unpredictable. This is very predictable behavior.
So even here, okay, you see, and again, this is a theme amongst a lot of trainers who tie into kind of a Cesar Millan type of approach. Leash is not, you don't see the leash being connected here a lot of times. A lot of times it's this type of, and I talk about why that's a problem. It can be a major problem because, it's this issue about dogs and options, right? Saying you're not in their pond that way, okay? It's this type of conversation that's more distant. Okay, it's not in close, it's not personal, meaningful the way I talk about. And that matters, right? Because this thing with appearances where a dog will seem like they're responding, right, properly, and they can look relaxed, but not be, okay? That's stinking thinking, right? It's not being revealed, okay? It's like you're working off of assumptions because you're not connected. Okay, you're working off of appearances. I keep talking about appearances in the dog training world are very deceptive. This goes right to actually studying what the social connection aspect of, that dynamic even represents. There's depth of relationship.
Okay, I'm gonna go in.
Caesar always does his little foot thing. Okay, so, but again, it's almost like a, blocking, right? Trying to, the dog just jumped right over his foot. But it's that option thing. And that's what happens. Dogs will say it's like a fight or flight. But it's also saying when people say, well, my dog responds better to my spouse than me. I'm like, don't be deceived. Okay. I mean, it's not about better the way you think it is where anything's really established at all correctly. The dog's just like, okay, fighter. The dog's like out of options. The dog still has no respect for anybody. But, but it has to tie in. Okay. In order for, a proper picture or, the dog's perceptions to change the right way, that conversation needs to be, the integrity that has to be represented through the integrity of how those core ingredients are reconciled. Okay, it's going to be specific.
Phoebe owns the whole entire house. It's just that she just owns it. It's just the bedroom becomes a much more powerful place for her to be because she spends most of the time there, especially when Dina goes to work.
It's the same thing. So bedroom, think about where the most emotion is happening, okay? That's what you see dogs. It's interesting, too, when you do the method, you'll see them go to certain supply sources. They'll immediately jump or go to places where that emotional connection happens the most with the owner. Just think of it. Very interesting, right? Because they're trying to rebalance the scales. They're trying to gain back control. So you start to see things from the level of supply, things start to make sense. Or go towards another dog quickly, if that's their main supply.
Work. That's a nervous bark right there. Stay right here, yeah. So now she's retrieving. So what you have here is so instead of us becoming tense, jumping, getting nervous, getting tense. We want to.
So, and some of this too, understand when you go off leash like this, some of this does play into people's emotions more, right? Because when you put the leash on, it's going to get more intense. Like that power play takes shape. So it's going to unsettle that owner who's highly emotional more, right? So there's a way to do this, but understand that there's certain dynamics here that really will be more appealing. And see, that's why I talk about, having the home field advantage, right? This thing about people's emotions are so powerful that even when you approach training with this type of off leash, wanting to pitch, see, it's just you're playing into the same thing. So because you're not, that integrity isn't there, you're not having that right conversation. And then, but what that does is it frames it up so that you're playing into the problem, okay? Because you're leaving that door wide open, and it's still appearances, right? It's like that Christmas postcard saying, okay, we're kind of working this, we're kind of, advocating here, but you have to ask the question: is it the right conversation? It'd be the same thing with the parenting example. A parent could be, it could be a major problem with the child's attitude and the selfishness, and the parent is like having a conversation like 10 feet away, and so, but that's appealing to the child. Say, well, this is great. I don't, we're having these conversations, but I can just kind of write them off. And for the other parent, that is, it's just like trying to make, avoiding confrontation, because it doesn't bring it into the type of power play that I talk about. But when I say that, it means like really getting into the issue here and getting it fixed. Because that's the thing, is like having the right conversation so you can resolve it and see the real deal.
Relate with her with a calm way of being, and at the same time very commanding. Right now, the brain is going through the process of, so what do I do now?
So what do I do? But still holding, you know what I'm saying? And going to the bed, it's like, it's not like that connection still isn't here. It's just avoidance, right? It's like I talked about that maze example, like in The Shining, right? That big giant maze where, dog's able to kind of work the angles, right? Because the integrity isn't there. The integrity needs to be that conversation, and that doesn't happen through this type of methodology. Is influence and control coming there? Yes. So I'm not saying that no change is going to happen at all. But when you get in this thing about, why someone gets bitten so much, or why bad things keep happening, right? Or the relationship doesn't resolve. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, it's it's an open door.
That's what you hear in it. Now that she's in a much calmer state, we're going to start introducing things that normally triggers her to go to a high level. Yeah? Yeah.
But if she was out here, she'd be at that.
Let's see the same thing. So when those triggers, right? Doorbell rings, and they say, oh, she normally would go, well, she feels somewhat contained here, but it's not the connection isn't here. Okay. The ability to be able to truly intercept her stinking thinking, that's not happening through the leash. You see, that's important because it's dog and human. Right? It's that connection, it's that personal conversation. That's the way to go. Okay. That doesn't, even with Caesar, that is not happening.
Door, and she.
I know, but she's not. So we're just gonna focus on what we're getting. A dog's supposed to tell you somebody's behind the door, right?
Right.
Because she's still barking, expressing, controls, manifesting, right? Just that she feels her ability is blocked to go to the door. So this whole thing with getting a dog to wait or block them, or like I said, that sets up tremendous problem, because the mind of the dog's still jumping right over you, right? Because it's like the dog is still the options, right? But saying, I'm still in control. Like to resolve it, it's about that conversation, right? This is talk about that social example. Here it is. The difference between, it's different with the human. Okay, it's gotta come together. It's distant.
So that's what she's saying. Somebody is there. What we don't like is that she stays there for a long time. So what we're gonna do for her is we're gonna put a leash, so we can.
So now he's going to go to the leash, okay?
We can bring her here so she can learn how to do it away from being under a bed.
But even how Caesar uses the leash, like pay attention. He's not dialed in that way. You'll notice that, he goes for the slack right away. Slack, it's more of a correction, that correction type of thing in certain moments. But it's not dialed in the way I talk about being proactive, where it's intercepting the moments, okay? Specific to intercepting those moments, its controls manifest, and that's thinking. Okay, it's about getting dialed in, picking off those moments.
Very nice.
With Phoebe out of her hiding place.
And pet, like that petting, right? You need to shut that down. That's control. You have to, because understand it's about the human changing. So when you see certain things happening in the trainers, you want to shut that down. You have to realign that to say, because that's control. Okay, that's a weak type of transfer happening, and it gives dog comfort, but the wrong type of comfort. It's fulfillment. It's control.
It's time to help her face her demons.
Amazon, Dyson, Ninja.
So here I'm disagreeing.
See right here. So same thing. That slack leash. Okay, you'll see that type of thing on the leash, but it's not about establishing intentional control and then being dialed in to intercept that way. You'll see how I'm demonstrating how I'm turning my body, I'm intercepting, I'm exposing the dog's level of investment. All right, so to how the dog's fixating at that level. There's ways to, move, okay, and to set up those interceptive moments to help to change the overall decision-making process of a dog. No, the leash should just be a connection, just like an anchor connection point. It's a way to change the perceptions of a dog.
Leash stays 99% of the time without tension.
See, so right there, 99% of the time without tension. So you see tension coming through the leash when I talk about baseline control, okay, it's going to reveal, okay? It's what control does, okay, to force the cards down. It's not meant to hurt the dog. It's not meant to, cause undue conflict with the dog. It's meant to take the stress off the dog. And also, it's going to expose the dog's intent. Okay, so a dog will get more desperate, okay, to invest. Okay, it's going to reveal the problems, okay, and also in terms of establishing change to intercept. So it's kinetic. You're working off of, there's a certain principle there you're working off as you're intercepting the dog's state of mind that way. And then more slack does come, as things move along. But initially, it's like I call it like a parental baseline. It's a baseline. There's a foundation of control, especially for some dogs, more so. Okay, you get into but it's going to avoid getting blindsided. Even how you turn your body, move, dogs can build up. Again, things can intensify very quickly just from a dog seeing, front on. Say the other dog or person, and things can explode and flash over before you even have time to react. So by angling and turning peripherally, you're giving the dog a peripheral view, but then they have to try to turn their head, and it allows you to have a better picture as to what that level of thinking, where it's at, so you can deal with it, so you can intercept it. It's more effective. Okay, so it's about how you do things. Okay, it's about the movements, the interplays of that.
Yes, that's even better. That's good. So that is
So even trainers, this is why the whole thing with loose leash, slack, right? Because right here, he's just looking at the physical. The physical, all right? You can't just go off the physical response. Okay, it's relational. Okay, it's the mind too. And how's the state of mind revealed? Through, the right conversation, influence and control, happening through that point of connection. It's very important. It's both. Okay, so the physical, what it can get you in trouble, especially with some dogs, because they go into a down, they can look like they're relaxed, kaboom. Next thing you know, someone's getting bitten.
surrendering to the activity. That's what she.
And then he'll throw the leash down, right? And so some of this is show. You see Dog Daddy doing that. See some trainers do that. It's like they want to create this moment of just show, like trust. But the question I have to ask: do I trust the show? Do I trust that picture? No. Okay, I don't, because those core ingredients haven't been reconciled. Okay, so it's like a lot of show. Is influence and control a certain level of change happening? Perhaps a certain level, sure, but but you want to know. Okay, I want to trust. I want to know what I want to trust that picture. So I'm going to stop it here. So just in conclusion, okay, the main takeaways here is understand there's a difference between the social aspect interplay of without human influence of the dog pack and the human, what that represents, and the alignment of that to make sure that that is going to be established the right way. Okay, comes through. Okay, talk about a intentional interaction based method that speaks the right language. That's where it's at. Okay, and again, so points of connection to the leash, being dialed into the dog's level of thinking, all of it matters. But then if you watch the series, I talk about how through appearances where things aren't dialed in properly, you see how even like the force free, as you want to call it, but even so much confusion just by way of whether it's balanced or force free, how appearances are being exploited, okay, taken out of context, leading to this situation where now this culture, right, of of dogs being destroyed, euthanized for unresolved behavioral issues, dogs medicated, all the problems, bad outcomes. You just line up all the bad outcomes. This is how common it is for people to end up with a counterfeit picture, a bad result. So here again, Caesar, you can watch the whole video, the whole biting moment. I can go through all of it, but you know, but again, I keep emphasizing the main points here of, you get bitten, the trainer gets bitten. A lot of times it takes hope away from the situation. And, you want to make sure you can trust the pitcher. Okay, how do you bring it to the point of trusting the pitcher that you're not dealing with a counterfeit? Reconciling, okay, a process through, again, those core ingredients coming together, aligning properly. So you be dialed into the relationship, dialed into the dog's state of mind, getting the right information so that you truly know coming out on the other side that it's truly a better relationship for you and your dog. I mean, that's where it's at. So if you have questions, contact me. Thanks for watching this series of videos. I hope you've gained much through this. And I really encourage you to really think about what I'm saying. If you have questions or anything, contact me. I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thanks for watching.